Let us understand a famous and beautiful poem named The Garden by Andrew Marvell. Before we read and understand his work, we must know some basic information about the poet. Who was Andrew Marvell? Marvell was an English poet. What does that mean? This means a poet who lived in England in the United Kingdom. He was born on 31st March 1621 and he passed away on 16th of August 1678. Not only was he an English poet, Marvell was also a politician, multi-talented person. Some of his famous works include To His Coy Mistress, Upon Appleton House, The Garden, a Horatian ode upon Cromwell's return from Ireland. Now that we know the poet, we can go ahead and enjoy reading this beautiful poem that he has written. The Garden is a nature poem by Andrew Marvell that was part of a collection named Miscellaneous Poems. Marvell focuses on the inner peace and joy one experiences in a garden and highlights the mistake humans make by pursuing worldly success in the forms of medals and appreciation from society or the government. Instead of trying to find inner joy through relationships, he asks humans to be in the presence of nature and simply enjoy its permanent green shade. This is the theme of the poem, which we have just discussed. He's mainly trying to position the garden as being far superior to anything and everything offered by worldly pursuits. Human love, human achievements, money, medals. Marvel's trying to convey that none of these hold any value when compared to the inner joy, the deep bliss, the permanent happiness one can gain from being close to the garden. Now, let's move ahead with the poem. There are a total of 9 stanzas in this poem. Now, we're going to read each stanza one by one and understand the meaning of each stanza. How vainly men themselves amaze to win the palm, the oak, or bays, and their incessant labours see, crowned from some single herb or tree, whose short and narrow word shade thus prudently their toils upbraid, while all flowers and all trees do close to weave the garlands of repose. Now let's see what is the meaning of this stanza. So Marvel states that human beings normally push themselves to win medals for writing good literature, or they try to earn these accolades by working in the military, or they try to get awards from writing good literature, etc. He says that instead of trying to find or find achievement or peace by doing any of these things, it is far better that we go ahead and enjoy the repose that we can get from being close to flowers and trees, the shade that one gets from difficult work. The word toils means difficult work, seems to be scolding them. So, this is a bit of personification here because Marvel is saying that the shade that we get from the difficult toils, the shade seems to be scolding us for being foolish, for being silly enough to put in so much labor for something which is so unimportant, which is so short lived. It is nothing but our foolhardiness to work so hard to get things which hardly bring us any pleasure, any lasting calmness, or any inner joy. So he is telling us not to waste our time in gaining worldly achievement. Instead of that, we should go ahead and try to be close to nature and seek bliss in the company of nature. Now let's move to the second stanza. Fair quiet, have I found thee here, and innocence, thy sister dear. Mistaken long, I sought you then, in busy companies of men. Your sacred plants, if here below, only among the plants will grow. Society is all but rude to this delicious solitude. The poet says that he has found quietness and innocence in the garden. He admits his mistake in seeking peace and quiet in the company of men instead of seeking them in nature. He calls society rude when compared to the peace and sheer beauty of a garden. Let's read stanzas 3 now. No white nor red was ever seen, so amorous as this lovely green. Fond lovers, cruel as their flame, cut in these trees their mistress's name. Little, alas, did they know or heed how far these beauties hers exceed. Fair trees, wheresoever your barks I wound, no name shall but your own be found. In stanza 3, Andrew Marvell says that the beauty of a woman cannot be compared to the beauty of this lovely garden. Many lovers carve the name of their mistresses on the bark of a tree. They do not realize that the tree is much more beautiful than their mistress. Then he says that if he were to ever carve any name on the bark of the tree, it would only be the name of the tree and no one else's. Now let's move ahead to stanza 4. When we have run our passion's heat, love hither makes his best retreat. The gods that mortal beauty chase, still in a tree did end their race. Apollo hunted Daphne so, only that she might laurel grow, and Pan did after siring speed, not as a nymph, but for a reed. So in this stanza, Andrew Marvell compares the love in human relationships and the love one can enjoy with nature. It is often seen that human love does not last. When the passion of human love gets over, individuals seek solace in the company of nature and nowhere else. Even the gods who chased mortal beauties, meaning beautiful women, ended their chase with plants or trees. In this context, Marvel names two Greek gods, Apollo and Pan. Apollo chased Daphne while Pan chased Syrinx. So we must learn from the Greek gods' experience and realize that the emotions we can experience in the presence of nature are far more permanent as compared to the emotions we feel in human love relationships. Again, what is he trying to convey through all this? He's trying to tell us that we should not be wasting our time in chasing human relationships or trying to get love from human relationships because that simply does not last. It's very temporary in nature. And finally, we only go to nature to seek solace and feel good. So he tells us not to waste our time, but to say that we must learn the lesson that even Greek gods ended up learning, that we should be in the company of nature, and the love, joy, inner peace, inner calm we're going to get through being close to nature is going to be long lasting, is going to be permanent. Okay, so what is he doing through this? It's a philosophy. It's actually a philosophical poem in which he's trying to convey his philosophy to us by telling us a lot of words of wisdom. Now let's move on to stanza number 5. What wondrous life in this I lead! Ripe apples drop about my head, the luscious clusters of the vine upon my mouth do crush their wine. The nectarine and curious peach into my hands themselves do reach, stumbling on melons as I pass, ensnared with flowers I fall on grass. In this stanza, the poet shares his wonderful experiences in the garden and how it brings him joy. Ripe apples fall around his head. Clusters of vine drop wine into his mouth. Peaches fall into his hands automatically. He stumbles on melons when he gets caught into a trap created by flowers, and then he falls on grass which cushions his fall. So, overall, the poet is trying to say here that there's so many comforts and luxuries that he enjoys in a garden. Even the falls are not hard. When he falls down, he has the soft cushion of grass. This is very unlike the difficulties one faces in life, because when one goes through the real life, then one, if he when one falls, one's going to get hurt, but none of that happens when he is in a garden. Everything is really soft, everything is taken care of when he is in the presence of nature. Now let's move to stanza number 6. Meanwhile, the mind, from pleasureless, withdraws into its happiness. The mind, that ocean, where each kind does straight into its own resemblance find, yet it creates, transcending these, far other worlds and other seas, annihilating all that's made to a green thought in a green shade. What this stanza means is that when the mind does not get enough happiness in the outside world, it enters into its inner world to feel happy. One feels bored, one feels less happiness after some time in the real world. So, what does the mind do? The mind enters its own inner world, it creates its own imaginative world just for the sake of happiness. The mind is like an ocean where every thought seems to find its connected thought easily. Going beyond these, the mind can create its own world and thoughts. It can remove all the negativity and create peaceful, happy thoughts when one is in a garden surrounded by nature. Next, what does the poet write in stanza 7? Here at the fountain's sliding foot, or at some fruit tree's mossy root, casting the body's vest aside, my soul into the boughs does glide. There like a bird it sits and sings, then wets and combs its silver wings, and till prepared for longer flight, weaves in its plumes the various light. The narrator in the poem says that he casts away his body's vest when he is at the foot of a fountain or near the root of a fruit tree, and he feels connected to his soul. His spirit seems to glide into the branches of trees just like a bird, where it sits and sings. The bird sits there and makes its wings nicer. It is also preparing for longer flight, which is actually the migration of a bird, which is being compared to the death of the speaker. The longer flight is actually the permanent separation of the soul from the body when it dies. But death does not scare the narrator nor the bird. Its preparation actually seems very nice and relaxing. This is because the soul is close to nature. This is what the poet has written in stanza number 7. Now let's move to the second last stanza of this lovely nature poem that teaches us so many lessons. In stanza 8, Marvell writes, such was that happy garden state, while man there walked without a mate. After a place so pure and sweet, what other help could yet be meet? But it was beyond a mortal's share to wander solitary there. Two paradises it were in one, to live in paradise alone. Now, here is a biblical reference. In stanza number 8, remember we have a reference to the Bible. We come to the beginning of the world. There's a reference to Adam and Eve's story. So Marvel says that such was the happy state of affairs in the garden while man walked there alone without any partner or mate. This is a reference to the Garden of Eden mentioned in the Bible. Till the time Eve came and ruined everything for Adam, Adam was completely at peace and was happy. When everything was so pure and sweet, what more help could a person need? But it was not the fate of man to wander alone and be happy. He feels that man wandering in paradise alone is the ultimate happiness, as it would be like enjoying two paradises at the same time, the paradise of inner peace and that of outer beauty of nature. So he says that it was not man's luck, it was not his fortune or his fate to enjoy two paradises. So Eve entered the world and disturbed the paradise. Now, let's move to the last stanza. How well the skilful gardener drew of flowers and herbs this dial knew, where from above the milder sun does through a fragrant zodiac run, and as it works the industrious bee computes its time as well as we. How could such sweet and wholesome hours be reckoned but with herbs and flowers? These lines refer to God and call him a skillful gardener. Marvell says that God created nature with its flowers and herbs. God is like a clockmaker, and the sundial measures not just the passing of a day or a year, but the life of the speaker. Bees keep track of time as well as we humans do. They, like the narrator of the poem, spend all their time in the garden in a sweet and wholesome way in the company of herbs and flowers. So we see how the garden is a beautiful nature poem that projects nature as the source of all the peace, joy, and bliss that a human being ever needs. Being in a garden and experiencing tranquility is a lot better than chasing honor in society through hard labor or chasing love in ever changing human relationships. We must turn to nature and experience the rich and stable joy it offers as opposed to chasing it in the material man made world, which is so much inferior in comparison. That's the end of the poem now. So, dear viewers, I hope you enjoyed learning about this poem by Andrew Marvell. Do remember to click the like button and subscribe for more such educational videos. Till next time, happy learning.